Today on the Topping Show, AOC calls the big beautiful bill passing one of the worst days in history. The Nissan Z is outselling the Toyota Supra by leaps and bounds. An LA protester goes viral for admitting that most of them plain just don't have jobs. Paramount to pay Donald Trump for manipulating the 60 Minutes interview with Kamala Harris. And Nissan recalls one of their funky engines. All of that and much more on the Topping Show. Thank you everyone for taking the time to tune in today. Today's episode of the Topping Show is proudly sponsored by Topping Technologies. Topping Technologies is an IT value-added reseller and services company with a special proficiency in IT security. Heck, I see their founder at least twice a day. Gotta say he's quite handsome and brilliant. Ease me, see that's a joke. If you're an IT leader or a business owner, reach out to the team at sales@toppingtechnologies.com. Also, still giving away a free Flamethrower with every IT purchase with Picatinny rail adapters to come out to any standard AR-15, like all awesome accessories can be. Go to toppingtechnologies.com and click the Flamethrower button to learn more and see me shooting a flamethrower. And lastly, trying to get to 6,000 subscribers by the end of the month, so if you can click that button and tell your friends, I would greatly appreciate it. Now going over to the business part podcast, you have Nissan outselling the Supra by leaps and bounds. This is brought to us thanks to Adrian over at Motor1.com. They say, quote, the Nissan Z is crushing the Toyota Supra in sales. That being said, the Ford Mustang is 4 times more popular than the Z and Supra combined. Which, fair to say, the Mustang did win the pony war since new Dodge Charger is an EV and the new Camaro doesn't exist from Chevrolet. Here you can see the juxtaposition of two pictures, the Nissan Z as well as the Toyota Supra. Nissan Z being famous for really being the only Nissan worth owning these days. Granted, it's a pretty low bar, not many things good to choose from. And Adrian says, quote, the Nissan Z got off to a slow start, partially due to production delays and supply chain disruptions caused by the microchip shortage. Either markups didn't help either. But that's all in the past. In 2025, the rear-wheel drive coupe is performing better than ever. Demand has more than doubled in the first quarter, surging 108% to 1,635 units for the first half of the year. Deliveries also jumped by 160.1% to 3,789 cars. Meanwhile, the Toyota Supra is having a much tougher year. The BMW engineered sports car racked up 1,231 sales in the first 6 months of 2025. That number represents a 17.7% drop compared to the January to June same period in 2024. They say, yes, the Z is outselling the Supra by a 3-to-1 margin. Looking ahead, Nissan won't have to worry much about the Supra since, well, that's going away. There you can see the neat-looking Supra, which, yeah, I believe... yeah, it's over in Amsterdam. It's actually one of those OEM things where BMW outsourced it to someone else to manufacture. Again, BMW did some designing stuff, but the actual manufacture of this is not in a BMW facility. And then, Toyota said, hey, that looks good. Can we copy that homework? They said, yeah, but don't be too obvious. So they changed the body, and to Toyota's, to their credit, they did make a stick shift for the vehicle, which I appreciate. They say that Toyota is pulling the plug after the 2026 model year, with a final edition limiting to 1,300 units. However, a 6th generation model is already underway and in the works, so the gap between the generations is likely to be shorter than before. Enthusiasts in the US certainly won't have to wait another 2 decades like that between the Mark IV and Mark V Supras. While the Z and Supra continue to lock horns, the Ford Mustang remains far ahead. Despite a 14.2% sales decline through June, the pony car still tallied 23,551 sales, more than 4 times the combined total of the Z and Supra. They also say we haven't forgotten about the Nissan's other performance cars, singular, the GTR. Only 37 units were sold in the first half of the year, down 75.5%. That's hardly surprising, as US production ended last October after the final Skyline Edition and Takumi Edition models. Japan closed its order books in late February, signaling the end of the R35. The new GTR is planned, but it won't arrive anytime soon. If the radical Hyperforce concept is any indication, it may be fully electric, which, yeah, let's just say, no, I don't think any enthusiast is looking forward to that. And it is funny. Now, again, anecdotally, in Texas, I've seen I've seen 3 Nissan Zs in the past 3 years, one of which was collecting copious amounts of dust on a dealership parking lot, partially because of the dealer markup. The other one was in a grocery store parking lot, and the third was actually on the road being driven. So it's kind of funny. Now, again, there's a little bit perhaps of a sample size bias because Texas is also the headquarters of Toyota North America. And I can't help but think a lot of Toyota employees get, a lot of them get some nice little employee discounts. Maybe them buy it for themselves. I do wonder of all the Supras out there, like how many of them are actually owned like by Toyota employees or friends and family of Toyota employees. So I think that could be a contributing factor of why, anecdotally, I'm seeing a lot, much more Supras compared to the Z. And it's sad that, the Supra is going away, but hopefully maybe the next one will actually be made by Toyota. I always thought it was kind of funny. I don't think anyone has ever said, you know what? I love the reliability of, I want Toyota, but less reliable. That's because, again, this is a BMW with a, Toyota body kit on it and a little bit more engineering. So it is also sad that, again, Nissan is still crashing. These sales don't help the company at all move the needle sales-wise. But it's cool to see, them having a dedicated sports car. As far as I know, it's the only sports car you can get right now that has a handbrake where you actually yank it up. It's not those little boring, anemic little clicky-click buttons like the Windows. And again, it's got, manual transmission. I believe it's one of 2 cars in the United States where you can get a stick-shift twin-turbo V6. The other one being the Cadillac CT4V Blackwing. It's kind of sad to think. I think those are the only 2 left in the United States in terms of a twin-turbo stick-shift V6. If you can think of any other ones, let me know. I mean, the BMW is awesome. Oh, I should say BMW. Yeah, Toyota over here, the Supra. But again, that's a straight 6, since it thankfully does come with the 6-shift option now. Didn't when the Supra first came out, the Mark V first came out. But it is kind of funny to see these articles time and time again. Nissan is outselling, the Nissan Z is outselling the Toyota Supra, and yet you just don't see them. At least I haven't. So I am curious. Depending on where you are, I'd be curious to see, is this just can you just not turn your head without seeing one of these in different towns, different cities, different states? Let me know. Have you ever actually seen a Nissan Z being driven on the road? And do you see more of them than the Supra? Let me know your thoughts, because as always, be fascinated to hear what you have to say. Going over to the Cultural Proud podcast, you have an LA protester saying, oh yeah, we actually, a lot of us don't have jobs. This is brought to us thanks to Libs of TikTok, in which she says, quote, the LA protester says the quiet part out loud. No one in Los Angeles has jobs, and that's why they're protesting Trump all day. What a sad, miserable life spending your days protesting things because MSNBC told you to. Now, fascinatingly enough, I actually didn't think this was a liberal gal because she does not have the, what I thought was obligatory cow ring. Pretty rare to see someone without that these days. She also does not have short blue or pink hair. Oh my gosh, I almost feel bad for the big hair industry. Pretty sure they've been propped up by the left the past couple of years, but without too much further ado, I shall play it right here.
Trump is so dumb for pissing off LA because we don't have jobs. Like, none of us have jobs. We have like COVID level amounts of free time to protest, my dude. He's so dumb.
I mean, Lord only knows how many government subsidies she's getting or handouts. Or maybe she's a paid protester, which we have seen many times, historically speaking, people that are paid copious amounts of money just to cause a ruckus. Now, I thought this would go more viral. Maybe everyone's like, well, no duh, they have no jobs. That's why they can protest all day. It's got about 131,000 views and 5,000 likes. And it does always, it makes sense in terms of all these protests are like on a random Tuesday afternoon. And I don't think anyone with a job is going to say, hey, boss, can I use a day of PTO or pay time off to go hold a poster board and yell and cry all day? I would love to see statistics of the breakdown of, in terms of weekday protesters, how many of them do not have a full-time job? It's one of those things where, maybe I'm also a workaholic. So, I'm working minimum, 90 hours a week. I can't fathom having so much free time that you just go and protest. And again, I think protesting is, it's a very important thing. Obviously, one of our core values as Americans for freedom of expression, freedom of speech, to peacefully protest. And if there's something that's vital, if it's ideally on a Friday or there's a little downtime, I'd probably go. But like an average weekday, like, oh yeah, no one has jobs. How are you affording to eat, or your rent, or your car insurance? Well, let's be honest, they probably not smart enough to have car insurance. But yeah, I always wondered, who's funding these people? How do they just not have jobs and protest all day? Now, going to the main comics section, first one's coming to us thanks to Planet of Memes, or as I call him, Planet of Memes. Though today I might say alleged Planet of Memes because there's no memes. Your profile is, that's just bad advertising. Your profile is Planet of Memes, and yet there's no meme. Now, this alleged Planet of Memes says, quote, these are the able-bodied losers on Medicaid and food stamps getting 582 likes, which, yeah, some politicians are irate that might actually be requirements to get government benefits. Like, if you're able-bodied, you'd have to work. Paul Zupa says, quote, she's a cautionary tale for anyone who continues to digest legacy media propaganda, getting 31 likes. Democrat Media TM says, quote, leftists are the most unhinged, vile, insufferable, and toxic species on earth. Changed my mind, getting 21 likes. Mirthful Moments says, quote, simple question. It's a meme of the Mexican flag. It says, quote, if Mexico is so great, why are you here? Getting 35 likes. Great question. The New Mexican Ranger says, quote, they're on government benefits. Cut them off and protests stop. Getting 72 likes, which I think that would greatly decrease the amount of protesters. But again, they're also paid protesters as well. They would probably still be out there. Again, I think that would significantly decrease the amount of random protesters, protesters going on a random weekday. But yeah, there are still people that are getting paid to do it. The Vault has a picture of Eric Swalwell. Says, I bet Eric Swalwell would hate it if you posted this picture of him and Fang Fang. And he's, yeah, of course, Democrats didn't remove him from any of his things or his responsibilities or his with his special assignments, even though he was dating a Chinese spy, getting 25 likes. Texas Gunpowder Party? Interesting party. I haven't heard that one yet. It's a picture of a, looks like a guy from the 1950s, a cartoon. He has a sombrero and a pipe and says, I don't really care, Jose, getting 21 likes. Jason says the resemblance is uncanny, is a picture of the girl juxtapositioned with the picture of Frodo from Lord of the Rings when he looks obsessed with the ring, getting 8 likes, which, yeah, I can see some similarities there. The Volt has a picture that says, quote, leftism, the religion of self-hatred, it teaches white people to hate their race, boys to hate their sex, women to hate their femininity, Americans to hate their country, Westerners to hate their history. What a loathsome, poisonous thing that is. Leftism is a hate group, getting 17 likes. Florida 1 says, quote, they're getting paid to protest. Now you understand, getting 54 likes. Least significant bit also says, why not protest Gavin Newsom? He has a far greater influence on what happens in California than President Trump, getting 18 likes. True. But of course, instead of blaming the person who has one of the biggest impacts on your state, yeah, they just, they'll blame Trump. Kind of like Chicago. If you live in Chicago, you have nothing to complain about in terms of Trump. I mean, that's probably the best example of, in terms of local governance and state governance being Democrat for almost 100 years. Like, you get what you vote for in Chicago. But I'm sure there'll be a safe, great place to live next year, like the Chicago Bears. Haha, sports pun. The last time the Chicago Bears won a Super Bowl, they saved the pictures to a floppy disk, which I think is cool, but most people would say is an archaic medium for saving data that is only nowadays representative when you save something in Microsoft Word. The save icon is a floppy disk. Fun fact of the day, that also dates and ages me. You have Phoenix 2A saying, quote, I love the heroin addict bruises she got as an extra, and 38 likes. Ray says, the amount of globalist cash subsidizing worthless people in progressive cities is astonishing, getting 12 likes as well. Ingush Singh says, quote, only Zoran Mariami can make America great again. There's a New York Post article and says, the price is white. And there's a picture of Zoran and says, Mariami says white neighborhoods should pay higher property taxes, getting 5 likes. Black Dumpling says, quote, look at how smug she is about living off the rest of us like a parasite, getting 27, let's make it 28 likes. Yeah, that's another huge culture shift we see in the United States. I mean, it is probably a little bit cliche because it's a movie. What an exceptional film is Cinderella Man with Russell Crowe. And he does actually go on temporary government assistance back in the day during the Depression. And once he made it, got back on his feet, he actually paid the government back. Because back then, there was really barely any of a sense of entitlement. When you were given money by the government, you felt it was your duty to pay them back. Nowadays, geez Louise, the amount of people, not only on entitlements, but have that mentality of, oh yeah, I should just get free stuff, is quite concerning and astonishing. Now, you also have Caroline says, quote, he's telling that some folks have nothing better to do than protest Trump all day, while his supporters are busy working and building stronger America. The man's policies, tax cuts, deregulation, and America First trade created jobs and opportunity before. He will do it again. Sad to see people wasting their lives on MSNBC fueled outrage instead of contributing something positive, getting 27 likes. Yep. Let's see. Myself says, quote, well, not just me. The profile, in fact, is named myself, hashtag Boston.con, saying, quote, hard to get a job when you have a mentally deranged when you are a mentally deranged liberal, getting 3 likes. Magas the Fix profile says, quote, Trump needs to cut federal funding to California and let them fend for themselves. If the people were working, they wouldn't be out causing mischief, getting 10 likes. Yeah, it's interesting to see how many subsidies states get. I believe how much did Gavin Newsom spend on illegals' health care? And then they tried to fix homelessness, and they lost allegedly $26 billion. Just couldn't account for it in California. tried to help the homeless, had nothing to show for it, except that money disappeared. Billions of dollars. Jeez. But yeah, I'd love to see a poll. I can't but think, yeah, most people who are protesting on a random day, mostly all unemployed. But let me know your thoughts, because as always, be fascinated to hear what you have to say. Now, going over to the political part podcast, Paramount to pay Trump for the manipulative Kamala Harris interview. Now, this brought to us thanks to End Wokeness. Now, he says, quote, breaking Paramount agreed to pay $16 million to Trump over edited 60 Minutes interview, which, I mean, a lot of us would also probably call this election interference. So again, I don't think anyone will actually be held accountable. It's going to be one of those settlements like, oh yeah, here's $16. Because again, Trump did sue. Here's the actual version from 60 Minutes from the Kamala Harris interview.
But it seems that Prime Minister Netanyahu is not listening.
Well, Bill, the work that we have done has resulted in a number of movements in that region by Israel that were very much prompted by or a result of many things, including our advocacy for what needs to happen in the region.
But it seems that Prime Minister Netanyahu is not listening.
We're not going to stop pursuing what is necessary for the United States to be clear about where we stand on the need for this war to end.
But it's...
You know, the editors are really good where she actually sounds somewhat coherent. That is a difficult thing to do, but the editors, they did it. Now, what preview I got, but 650,000 views and 22,000 likes. One of the first comments comes to us thanks to Gunther Eagleman, who says, quote, good 60 Minutes is trash propaganda, getting 389 likes. Paul Zupa says, quote, CBS should be prosecuted for election interference. 60 million shouldn't get them out of jail time, getting 639 likes. The Gas Stove, our favorite contrarian, says, quote, he says Trump bet the knee. He sued them for $10 billion and is going to get 1/1000th of it. Terrible. Getting 29 likes. 43 responses. One of the first responses comes to us thanks to conspiracy theorist. Says, quote, there's one thing he knows how to do. It's settle outside of court. It says 2 sexual assault miss cases, 3 Trump University cases, countless others. He's weak. Getting 1 like. Dalian P3 says, honestly, sure this is gas, but part of me agrees. It's still a win, but I would have liked to see him get a little more aggressive, getting 3 likes. Michael James says, bro thinks 16 million is a loss, getting 4 likes. Which, yeah, that's a pretty pain to get. Alberry says, you're missing the point. It was getting CBS to show they helped Harris. Did you miss how your savior helped him with the answer? Or helped her with the answer? Getting 4 likes. Going down more and more. Libercat EDM also says, quote, CBS FAFO. There's a picture of Trump JD Vance that says, we're not tired of winning yet, getting 109 likes. Mr. Pitbull, I would say the legend Pitbull singer. I don't think it's him unless he has a disproportionate amount of time in his hands to tweet these days. So it's been a couple years since he talked about the hotel. He's very passionate about the hospitality industry. He had a whole song about it. I was surprised. Now, Mr. Pitbull allegedly says, quote, it's about the difference. It's Kamala's gender fluid. I forget what the definition or how it went by child. And it says raised by Kamala, which was at Tim Walls's. No, not Tim Walls. That was a running mate, her husband, who also allegedly abused women. His child. And then he said, and again, this person looks very frumpy, looks like a Beetlejuice character, or perhaps the Joker on a bad day. And it says raised by Kamala, and then juxtaposition with a picture of Trump's son says raised by Trump with Barron in a suit, and he's looking sharp as always. Getting 276 likes. Lil Mo says, quote, y'all still talking about Kamala Harris, getting 27 likes. News Now says $16 million, says Trump was right. Fake edits, real consequences, getting 358 likes. 9-Foot Couch says tell Bernie Sanders he was clueless on Rogan, getting 137 likes. Mr. Pitbull also says, quote, Trump was right about everything. 1, they spied on his campaign. Yes, they did. 2, they lied about Hunter Biden laptop story. Leslie should be apologized to Trump. Leslie Stahl should apologize to American people, getting 158 likes. Alice Lay says they should lose their license for conspiring with a presidential candidate to manipulate voters, getting 330. Yeah, they get 331 likes. Also have XMWCGS says, quote, I saw it. They will not apologize as part of the agreement. Can't risk their uninformed audience from catching wind of this. Getting 28 likes. Anthony Galil says, quote, 60 minutes should be remained to 16 million. Getting 13 likes. Let's see. A bunch of people posting GIFs, leftists breaking down and freaking out. Claudius says, quote, even her edited interview answer makes no sense. She's a real lemon, and I hope she runs again in 2028. Getting 5 likes. Which, it is interesting how, of all the states that she won, was it all of them or all but one of the states that Harris won, they did not require voter ID. That's a fascinating coincidence. It's not a coincidence, I'm sure. Let's see. Ether Tam says, quote, can we take a minute to remind ourselves that if Donald Trump hadn't won last November, they wouldn't have done anything about this and just continue to blatantly lie to the public with no repercussions. This is proof they lie. Propaganda. Is there anything, the leftist justification to this? I'm still waiting to hear it, getting 16 likes. Strike for America says, how about just canceling 60 Minutes once and for all, getting 16 likes? Which, again, I think this is important because a lot of people still do listen to 60 Minutes and a lot of these major news organizations. One of these was this Levels, said more Frosters. It's a screenshot of CNN when they actually literally changed the hue or the tone, not tone, the color of Joe Rogan when he was taking alternative medications when he got the pandemic, or he got the COVID-19. Majority Roll says, quote, I blame the legacy media for escalating the nation to crippling levels. Every crisis we've seen in the past 15 years, most of them would have had minor consequences if not for the lies and manipulation purposely used against the American people to inflame those situations, unquote, getting 11 likes. So we'll see if this has any dent at all in terms of the audience of 60 Minutes, if people will take them less seriously, or if this news even spreads far and wide. I can't think they'll probably have not much impact on the numbers of 60 Minutes because people will probably just watch it no matter what, but let me know your thoughts because, as always, be fascinated to hear what you have to say. Other interesting political news have AOC calling the big beautiful bill passing one of the worst days in history, which of course she does because she's insane. Us Rachos thinks you Nick Sorter, and he says, quote, LMFAO, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez just said, last week was one of the saddest days in modern history. She was literally on the verge of tears, all because the big beautiful bill passing. This is how you know we won. It's I was about to say mentally vacuous as usual, but it's AOC, it's kind of like double negative. You already know that. Let's hear what she has to say.
I think this is one of the saddest days in modern American history.
Oh no, Americans will have more money in their pockets because they're not being taxed as much. Terrible. Here's a bartender. She should be excited that there's no tax and tips. But of course, she doesn't care about the common folk.
The largest, this is the largest withdrawal and ending of healthcare in American history.
For illegals and people who don't work. Again, this should have been done decades ago. But now there's actually requirements if you are able-bodied to actually get government handouts, which one would think would not be controversial, but of course it is.
17 million people in our country, 17 million Americans in our country
Illegals
are going to lose their Medicaid. They're going to lose their ACA insurance. Small business owners are going to have their healthcare costs skyrocket. And
because they're employed illegals? What do you mean here?
People are going to have their SNAP and WIC cut back.
Oh, no.
People are going to go hungry. People are going to get sick.
You mean the programs where people disproportionately stay on there for a long amount of their life? That was meant to be a temporary assistance. Has become a lifestyle for far too many.
On a scale unlike anything we've ever seen.
Good.
And it's all of it is just to finance tax cuts for billionaires and the wealthiest corporations who don't even need it. I don't think I don't think we have ever seen or are prepared for how catastrophic this is set to be for a lot of people. And I think it's
extra people.
It's devastating. And they're talking about this as though it's some tax cut. Even the stuff that they're talking about, taxes on tips, no tax on tips, that's only for people, that's only up to $25,000. And
that's a lot of money if you're an hourly employee. That's still a great thing.
If you're making less than that, you're already kind of exempt from a lot of these things in the first place. So they're giving people crumbs and they're taking away the whole loaf. And it's just a genuinely really sad day for our country.
What about Leader Jeffrey's final message, looking ahead to 2026, 2028?
Well, you know, to Leader Jeffries' message, he's right. The best thing that we can do right now is press on. And in order for us to salvage what we have and to build through, we have to chart a new course and a new path to our future. And we have to make sure that there are consequences. If you're on Medicaid, if you're on ACA, if you are on Medicare and rely on Medicaid to help with your long-term care, there has to be consequences to these votes. And we have to decide if this is just a joke or just for TV or if this is our real lives. And I hope people vote like it's our real lives. I think that,
as usual, mentally vacuous. Though Not really viral. I'm sure she'll get more campaign donations because of what she says. Now, this got about 120,000 views and 8.9 thousand likes. One of the first comments comes to us thanks to Data Republican. Says, quote, I was a bit skeptical on the Big Beautiful Bill, but this video convinced me, getting 992 likes. Next order responded saying, quote, when AOC is on the verge of a total mental breakdown, it's probably the best good sign, getting 470 likes. Megan American says, quote, she's already cried and it goes to after this video, getting 46 likes. Fudge punch for fist punch skull. Profile is an interesting name. Says, quote, AOC, cry me a river, you fake biatch. And they used Grok to make an AI generated picture of her with slightly bigger teeth, saying "Eall," getting 119 likes. Going down more and more. Deplorable, unique profile name, says, quote, friendly reminder. It's a news article from Fox News where they talk about new non-citizen social security numbers used. And yeah, looks like in 2024, there's over 2 million non-citizens who got social security numbers. 2023, there's a little over a million. 2022, 500,000. 2021, 250,000. And that got 30 likes. Pretty flat for a white privileged girl. Very long profile name, though descriptive. Says, quote, it's pretty much the same kind of tears she had at the fake border picture. Getting 90 likes for the picture op. In Dad says, quote, wait until she visits Alligator Alcatraz. Getting 15 likes. It's a picture of her pretending to cry at the border. Scrolling down more and more. Graham simply has a picture of a tissue box gaining 4 likes. Scotty B says, quote, 17 million people. Which people? Gain 3 likes. DC Rocket says, quote, who? It's a Fox, was it the Fox film logo that's changed to say no one cares. Gain 5 likes. Digital Aspect says, quote, cry more liberals. It's a AI generated picture of a bunch of rats crying. Getting 4 likes. Blue Falcon simply has a picture of Dora the Explorer on a Visa, and here's a stamp that says deported, getting 2 likes. Christie says, quote, these Democrats wanted so much for this bill to fail. Why? Because the 2017 tax cuts would be expired and everything would go up by 68%. We would have went into a recession and Democrats could have screamed, we told you Trump would destroy America. That's just one reason. Getting 9. Let's make it 10 likes. Yeah, again, those tax cuts are not permanent. That's great news. Again, I'm not a fan of all the big, beautiful bill. There wasn't the pro-gun stuff that I was hoping. I mean, this is almost 100 years of tyranny with the NFA or National Firearms Act in 1934. Should have been repealed decades ago. And in the bill, there's a part that have gotten rid of a lot of the things off the NFA, including short-barreled rifles, short-barreled shotguns, suppressors, as well as any other weapon or AOWs. They didn't address the most fun things like machine guns and destructive devices, which can be purchased, if not a lawyer, but you can purchase if you pay the $200 tax stamp, your state allows it, and you do the proper paperwork process. You also have Nov9 saying, quote, yeah, no more laundering USAID and green money scam for these feckless wonders. Has any reporter even asked this disgusting worm how she's worth tens of millions of dollars in Congress on Congress pay when she's a bartender not 5 or 6 years ago? Getting 12 likes. Well, I'm sure she's just really good at investing, not all corrupt. Of course not. Of course, yeah. And Barr says this is hilarious. She is so full of shit. Getting 3 likes. Faith God says, quote, I guess Democrats should have fought harder to tax American people more money and give all our money to illegals and free Medicaid. And no, sorry, Charlie. Getting 2 likes. I said Blue Falcon says, quote, no tax on tips isn't a big deal. Let's see your returns, donkey tooth wench. Getting 2 likes and a very unique pejorative insult. It's very descriptive. That's multiple words. That he must really be irate. And again, she was a bartender. She should be excited about these tax breaks. I mean, in terms of her skill set, that's probably what she'll default on if she ever gets defeated in the next upcoming election. Sherry Walker says, quote, the only people being hurt are those who are here illegally. They need to go, getting 2 likes. Let's see. Patrick Bronson says, quote, hey, OC, why didn't you bring your chain-linked fence with you during your saddest day in modern history interview? Getting 2 likes. Yes, I have Dave Barry saying, quote, I'm so drunk on liberal tears, I'm going to have a hangover tomorrow, Alec. Getting 2 likes as well. So yeah, I can't but think, I mean, again, there are a lot of good things, beautiful bill, but yeah, the fact that she opposes it so irate probably just for the evidence is good for our country. But let me know your thoughts, because as always, be fascinated to hear what you have to say. Now, going over to the business blunder of the day of Nissan recalling their funny-looking engine. Now, this is brought to us thanks to Motor1.com, specifically Chris Perkins. And they say, quote, Nissan just issued a major recall for its funky variable compression engine. The innovative engine appears to be a victim of its own complexity. It couldn't have come at a worse time for Nissan, which, yeah. of all the companies that are crashing like a Boeing airplane, it's Nissan. Here you can see that funky looking interior of the engine. And again, this is credited to Charlie Perkins, and he says, quote, Nissan's variable compression engine once held such promise. The so-called VC turbo uses a complicated mechanism to allow operation at a low compression ratio for performance and high compression ratio for better fuel economy. But reliability has become a concern, prompting the National Highway Traffic and Safety Administration investigation and now a massive recall. Which, yeah, Nissan and recalls are almost like peanut butter and jelly. It's almost, well, I was going to say, I dare say they're nearly as unreliable as a Ford Motor Company vehicle, which is saying something, and they've had more recalls than anyone else this year. Now, this includes their 2019 to 2022 Infiniti QX50, 2022 Infiniti QX55, 2021 to 2004 Nissan Rogue, and the 2019 to 2020 Nissan Altima. They say that, quote, the two Infiniti models and certain trim levels of Altima uses Nissan's 2-liter 4-cylinder VC turbo engine, while the Rogue uses the 1.5-liter 3-cylinder variant. As we reported before, the problem stems from bearing failure due to a manufacturing defect in the multi-link mechanism that varies the compression ratio. Nissan had introduced manufacturing updates over the lifespan of the engine, which seems to have helped, if not solve the problem entirely, hence why the newer Infiniti models and Altimas, plus the new Murano, are not covered in the specific recall, but is a huge amount of engines. They say that per the NHTSA filing, the recall procedure is straightforward, but could prove painful for the struggling Nissan. Dealers will inspect the oil pans of the affected cars for metallic shavings. If no metallic debris is present, they'll replace the engine oil in the 4-cylinder cars and the oil and pan in the 3-cylinder cars. The 3-cylinder models will also get an updated software update, but if there's metal present in either VC turbo engine, dealers will replace the engine. Well, they'll replace the engine entirely if deemed necessary. Which, yeah, one of the most heartbreaking moments, almost like ice water being poured over your heart, is when you look at your oil and there's flakes of metal in there because the engine is literally destroying itself. Now, they say, quote, the irony is that the VC turbo engine never quite delivered on its promise of performance and fuel economy improvements. Nissan spent decades working on the engine, finally doing what many others never managed to pull off, but variable compression didn't become a must-have piece of tech. Now it's behind the curve on hybrids and EVs, playing catch-up in the changing world with a variable compression albatross hanging off of its neck. Nissan will send the recall notice to customers on August 25th, 2025, or just tune in to the Topping Show where we cover these recalls sometimes days, sometimes weeks, sometimes months ahead of schedule. And again, Nissan is already in so much trouble. They are closing nearly a majority of their factories. Again, they have 17. They're going to get down to 10 in the past next couple of years. Their sales are struggling. And this just further ruins the brand reputation of Nissan, which is already known for being an entry level, one of the cheapest Japanese cars you can get, being unreliable. I mean, shoot, it's up there with Mitsubishi. And yet another reason not to buy a Nissan when right now they need sales now more than ever. So I was going to say, I don't know if this is going to be the nail in the coffin for Nissan, but yet another reason not to buy one. And let me know, has anyone really demanded this tech? Is this a selling point where you're really excited to get, a little more fuel economy out of your engine, and then when you want to, a little bit more performance? I can't but think this really didn't move the needle much when it comes to sales, or I don't think most consumers even care about this. But let me know your thoughts, because as always, be fascinated to hear what you have to say. And Nissan, you are certainly the business blunder of the day. Thank you everyone for taking time to tune in today. Again, trying to get to 6,000 subscribers by the end of the month, so you can click that button. I greatly appreciate it. Also, give me a thumbs up, thumbs down, or comments. Great way to give me some additional feedback, letting me know how I can make the show better and better. Lastly, don't forget to take time to tell your family, tell your friends, tell your coworkers, heck, tell your enemies, tell anyone and everyone. Just stay safe and fight the good fight.